The night was colder than usual, the kind of chill that seeps into the bones, and makes the city feel lonelier than it already is. A thin mist curled up from the river below the old steel bridge, wrapping the world in silence except for the hum of distant traffic, and the occasional honk that echoed in the distance. Michael adjusted the strap of the worn-out backpack slung over his shoulder. His clothes smelled faintly of oil and sweat from the garage where he had worked a double shift just to cover rent. Every muscle in his body ached, but his mind was heavier than his limbs. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter, his daughter Emma's school fees overdue, the empty fridge waiting at home, everything weighed on him. Still, he kept walking, he had to. For her. He was halfway across the bridge when something stopped him. At first, he thought it was just a shadow caught in the fog. But then he saw her. Standing at the very edge, her fingers gripping the cold railing. Her hair whipping in the wind like a dark banner of despair. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, dressed in a light sweater that did nothing against the night's chill. Michael froze. His breath hitched. He had seen that posture before. The stillness of someone standing on the line between life and death. For a moment, he considered walking past. He was just a tired man with his own problems, not a hero. Not someone strong enough to save a stranger. But then, he thought of Emma. His little girl. If she were ever in that place, alone, ready to give up, wouldn't he pray for someone to stop her? His heart pounded as he stepped closer.
Hey!
His voice cracked against the silence. The girl flinched but didn't turn around. Michael's feet moved faster now, urgency pushing him forward. Don't do it," he said, his voice softer this time. Pleading finally she turned her head slightly, just enough for him to see her profile in the dim streetlight. Her face was streaked with tears. Her lips trembling. Her eyes looked hollow like someone who had already left this world even though her body was still standing there. "Why shouldn't I?" she whispered, almost lost to the wind. "No one cares. No one would even notice." Michael's chest tightened. He reached her side and carefully, slowly, placed his hand on her arm, afraid she might leap if startled. "I'd notice," he said firmly, though his voice shook. "I'm noticing right now. Please, don't jump." For a moment, the world hung in a fragile balance. The roar of the river beneath them, the faint hiss of passing cars. And two broken souls clinging to a single instant. Her grip on the railing loosened, but her knees wavered. Michael pulled her gently back toward him, wrapping his coat around her shivering frame. She didn't resist. She just looked at him, startled, as if she couldn't believe a stranger cared enough to stop. That was when he realized this wasn't just about saving her. In a strange, unexplainable way. Saving her might be the very thing that saved him too. Michael guided her gently away from the railing, until they reached the cold steel bench bolted to the side of the bridge. The fog seemed to close in around them, wrapping the world in a hushed silence, broken only by the rushing current of the river below. The girl sat down stiffly, pulling her arms around herself, as if she wanted to disappear into her thin sweater. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Michael lowered himself beside her, his backpack sliding to the ground. He kept a careful distance. Close enough to show he wasn't leaving, far enough not to scare her. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The only sound was her uneven breathing. Finally Michael drew in a long breath and broke the silence. "You don't have to tell me why you were up there," he said softly, his voice tired but steady. "But I want you to know something. I get it." She gave a short, bitter laugh without looking at him. "No, you don't." Michael leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. He stared at the mist, the lights of the city blurring in the distance. "You'd be surprised," he murmured. She turned her head slightly, just enough to glance at him from the corner of her eye. Her gaze flickered over his work-stained hands, his wrinkled jacket, the exhaustion written on his face. Something in her expression shifted, curiosity battling despair. Michael sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. "I'm a single dad," he admitted, his voice low. "My wife left 2 years ago. Just packed her bags one night and walked out. Said she couldn't handle all this." He gestured vaguely to himself, to the world around him, to the weight of his life. Her eyes widened slightly, though she said nothing. "I work at a garage," he continued. "Double shifts, sometimes triple, just to keep the lights on. Most days I come home so tired I can barely stand. But there's this little girl waiting for me. My daughter, Emma. She's 6. Loves drawing unicorns and insists on pancakes for dinner. A faint, involuntary smile touched his lips, though his eyes shone with exhaustion. She's the only reason I'm still standing. Because some nights, when I feel like I'm going to break, I look at her, and I remember she needs me. The girl swallowed hard, her throat bobbing. Her eyes glistened as she whispered. At least you have someone who needs you. I don't have anyone. Michael turned to her then, really looking at her. At the way her hands trembled in her lap, at the hollow look in her eyes that no one her age should carry. You're wrong, he said quietly but firmly. Right now I need you. My daughter needs you. She doesn't even know you yet, but she needs people like you in this world. People who still matter. Even if they can't see it right now. Her lips parted, but no words came. She just stared at him as though no one had ever spoken to her that way before. The dam inside her began to crack. Her voice broke as she whispered, I'm tired of being invisible. Of walking through life like I don't exist. I used to dream, I wanted to be a doctor once. I wanted to help people. But now I can't even help myself. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for the first time, she didn't hide them. Michael's heart clenched. He wanted to reach out to comfort her, but he restrained himself, knowing she needed words more than touch. Dreams don't die just because life gets hard, he said. They wait. Sometimes they wait a long time. But they're still there. You're still here. That means there's a reason. She let out a shaky breath, staring at him as though the flicker of hope she had buried deep inside was trying to come alive again. And sitting there on that cold bridge bench. 2 strangers. One fighting to survive for his daughter, the other fighting to survive for herself. Realized they shared the same pain, the desperate need to be seen, to be needed, to be saved. The silence stretched between them, heavy but no longer suffocating. The girl, her face pale, her eyes rimmed with red, sat curled into herself on the bridge bench. Michael could feel her fear, her pain. As though it leaked out of her skin and seeped into the night air. He shifted uncomfortably, his work boots scraping against the concrete. Something in him wanted to keep talking. To reach her before that fragile flicker of hope she'd shown was smothered again. Slowly, he slipped his hand into the pocket of his worn jacket and pulled out his phone. You said you don't matter. He began softly, glancing at her. But let me show you someone who proves you're wrong. As she frowned faintly, confused. Michael unlocked his phone, swiped a few times, and held it out to her. The screen glowed with a picture of a little girl sitting cross-legged on a messy living room floor, crayons scattered everywhere. Her hair was a wild tangle of curls. Her cheeks smudged with color where she'd clearly used her hands more than the paper. She was grinning, one tooth missing, holding up a drawing of a lopsided unicorn with rainbow hair. This is Emma. Michael said, his voice warm even in its wariness. My daughter. My reason. The girl hesitated, then took the phone carefully, as though holding something precious. She stared at the picture for a long time, her lips trembling, her chest rising and falling unevenly. She looks happy, she whispered at last. She is, Michael replied. But not because life is easy. She's happy because she believes the world is still good. Because she believes in people. And because she believes in me. He leaned back against the cold bench, exhaling. I can't afford to let her down. Every morning she runs to the window to wave when I leave for work. And every night she's waiting by the door when I come home. Sometimes I feel like I've got nothing left to give. But then she hugs me, and it's like the pieces inside me shift just enough to keep going one more day. The girl's grip on the phone tightened. She blinked rapidly, as though fighting back tears. She has you. She said softly. Almost to herself. At least she has you. Michael tilted his head, watching her. You said earlier you wanted to be a doctor. That doesn't sound like someone who has nothing to give. That sounds like someone who wants to give everything. Her face twisted, and she handed his phone back as though it burned her. That was a lifetime ago. She muttered. Back when I still believed in myself. Back when I thought dreams were for people like me. But then reality. She hugged her knees tighter. Reality crushed me. Michael tucked his phone away but kept his eyes on her. He recognized that tone, the bitterness, the exhaustion. He had lived with it himself. Reality crushes everyone at some point, he said gently. But it doesn't erase who you are. You still dreamed it. That means it's still a part of you. Maybe it's waiting for you to fight for it again. The girl let out a shaky laugh. Fight for what? I don't have money for school. I don't have family cheering me on. I don't even have a place I belong. Her words cracked like glass against the night, and for a moment, she seemed smaller, fragile, like a bird with broken wings. Michael leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. Neither do I, he admitted. I don't have family backing me up. My parents are gone. My wife left. It's just me and Emma. Most nights I don't know how I'm going to make it through the month. But you know what? She glanced at him, her expression wary, but he continued. I don't need to know the whole path. I just need to know the next step. Sometimes it's as simple as waking up, packing Emma's lunch, and getting her to school. Sometimes it's fixing a car at work even though I'm dead on my feet. One step. That's it. And slowly, step by step, life hasn't beaten me yet. His words lingered in the air. The girl's lips parted, as though she wanted to argue, but instead, tears slipped down her cheeks again. She brushed at them angrily. Why are you even telling me this? Why do you care? Michael paused. He thought about it. Really thought about it. Finally, he said, because I know what it feels like to stand at the edge and think nobody sees you. I know what it feels like to believe the world wouldn't notice if you disappeared. And I can't let you believe that lie. Not tonight. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. The dam inside her had broken. All the years of loneliness, of feeling invisible, poured out in sobs that echoed in the fog. Michael didn't move closer, he just sat there, a quiet presence, letting her know she wasn't alone anymore. Minutes passed before she finally lowered her hands. Her eyes were swollen, her voice raw. I used to picture myself in a white coat, walking through hospital halls, saving lives. I thought if I could do that, maybe someone would finally see me. Maybe someone would finally care. Michael's chest tightened. And that dream, he said gently, is proof that you already matter. Because even in your pain, even when you felt invisible, your heart wanted to heal others. That's who you are. And that doesn't disappear just because life tried to bury it. Her lips quivered. She stared at him as though she didn't know whether to believe him. As though hope itself felt dangerous. Michael pulled his wallet from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a folded crayon drawing Emma had given him. Another unicorn, this one with two stick figures holding hands beside it. At the top, written in a child's uneven scrawl, were the words "Me and Daddy." He held it out to the girl. She gave me this last week. Said it was us defeating monsters together. Do you see? To her. I'm not just a man who struggles to pay bills. I'm her hero. And the only reason I can be her hero is because I'm still here. The girl's eyes filled again. She reached out with trembling fingers, touching the edge of the paper as though it was sacred. Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. What if you're supposed to be someone's hero too? What if tonight isn't the end of your story, but the beginning of someone else's reason to keep living? The fog swirled around them, the river roared below, but in that moment, something shifted inside her. The weight that had pressed her down for so long felt just a little lighter, just enough to breathe. For the first time in years, she let the smallest flicker of hope settle in her chest. And beside her, Michael knew he had given her more than words. He had given her a glimpse of a tomorrow she had forgotten was possible. The night had grown colder, the fog rolling in thicker, wrapping the bridge like a shroud. Streetlights flickered faintly, casting halos of gold through the mist. Michael and the girl sat side by side on the weathered bench, strangers bound by a fragile thread of trust. For a long moment, she stayed quiet, hugging her knees, her breath puffing in the cold. Michael thought she might shut herself down again, vanish back into the silence. But then, her voice broke softly through the night. There's something I haven't told you, she whispered. Michael turned, brows furrowing. Her tone carried weight. An edge of guilt, almost fear. You don't have to. He began, but she shook her head sharply, cutting him off. No, she said, more firmly this time. You've been honest with me. The least I can do is be honest with you. I'm not. She hesitated, biting her lip. I'm not who you think I am. Michael tilted his head, confused. What do you mean? Her eyes glistened in the dim light. I'm not some girl no one cares about. I'm not invisible. Her voice cracked, and she looked away toward the dark river. I'm the daughter of one of the richest men in this city. Michael blinked, stunned. For a second, he thought he'd misheard her. She let out a shaky breath and continued before he could respond. My name is Lily. Lily Ashford. My father owns Ashford Enterprises. The name struck Michael like a hammer. Everyone in the city knew it. Ashford Enterprises controlled half the skyscrapers downtown, hotels across the country, even charities and hospitals. It was a name whispered with respect and resentment alike. Michael stared at her. She didn't look like an heiress. Her sweater was fair, shoes worn, her face marked not by makeup and polish, but by tears and exhaustion. She looked like a lost child. I ran away. She said finally, her voice barely audible. Everyone thinks being wealthy means you have everything. But it's a cage, Michael. It's a suffocating, golden cage. My father never had time for me. My mother cared more about appearances than about whether I was happy. And the people around me. Her lips trembled. They only saw the money. Not me. Never me. Michael swallowed hard, processing. So that night, on the bridge. She nodded, closing her eyes. I thought maybe the world wouldn't notice if Lily Ashford disappeared. Maybe then, finally, I'd stop being a burden. The weight of her confession hung heavy in the mist. Michael rubbed his tired face, unsure whether to be angry at the injustice of it, or heartbroken for her loneliness. He thought of Emma again. How she needed nothing but love, how he'd given the world if he could. And here sat a girl who had been given the world but starved for love. You're wrong, he said firmly, his voice rough. You're not a burden. You're just hurt. And you have every right to be. But ending your life won't fix the pain. It'll just pass it to someone else. To your father, to your mother. To someone who would have given anything to know you. Lily flinched, shaking her head. You don't know them. They wouldn't care. My father cares only about business. My mother cares only about society parties. They'd probably be relieved if I stopped being an embarrassment. Her words burned with bitterness. But Michael saw the truth hiding underneath. A daughter who desperately wanted to be loved, even if she pretended not to. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Then let me tell you something. Love doesn't always come from where you expect. Sometimes it finds you in the unlikeliest places. Tonight. You thought no one would notice you. But I noticed, and I won't let you throw yourself away. Her eyes snapped to his, wide and vulnerable. Why? She whispered. Why would you care about me? You don't even know me. Michael met her gaze steadily. Because I know pain when I see it. Because I know what it feels like to want to give up. And because, whether you believe it or not, your life is worth something. For the first time, her shoulders sagged, as though the weight of her secret had been lifted just enough for her to breathe. She inhaled shakily, her tears falling again. Not from despair this time, but from the fragile relief of being seen. You're the first person who's said that to me. Lily admitted, her voice breaking. Not as Lily Ashford. Not as an iris. Just chest tightened. He didn't have riches or power, but he had something Lily had been starved of. Genuine compassion. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. By the time Michael and Lily left the bridge, dawn was stretching its pale fingers across the horizon. The fog had thinned, and the city was beginning to stir. Headlights cutting through the mist. The distant hum of life starting again. They walked in silence at first. Lily's steps were hesitant, as though each one was a test of whether she deserved to keep moving forward. Michael carried his backpack slung over one shoulder, casting glances at her now and then, making sure she didn't drift away. Physically or emotionally. When they reached his small apartment, tucked in a worn-down building on the edge of town, Lily paused at the threshold. She had never been in a place like this before. The chipped paint on the door, the flickering hallway light, the faint smell of someone cooking eggs down the hall, it was so far removed from the marble floors and crystal chandeliers of her family's estate. Yet, oddly, it felt warmer, more alive. Michael pushed open the door and gestured her inside. It's not much, he said, almost apologetically. But it's home. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, a cramped kitchen, and a threadbare couch that had seen better days. Toys and crayons were scattered on the floor, coloring books stacked neatly on a little table by the window. And in the center of it all was a little girl with curls as wild as sunshine, still in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed unicorn. "Daddy!" Emma squealed, running to him with tiny arms outstretched. She crashed into his legs, giggling, then tilted her head curiously at the stranger standing in the doorway. Michael crouched down, hugging his daughter tight, inhaling the comfort of her presence. When he pulled back, he smiled at her gently. "Emma, this is Lily, she's a friend, she needed a place to rest." Emma's big eyes studied Lily for a long moment. Then, without hesitation, she walked over and wrapped her small arms around Lily's waist. "Don't be sad," Ellie said simply. "You can stay with us." Lily froze. Her eyes widened, then shimmered with tears as she slowly, awkwardly returned the hug. No one had embraced her like that in years. No hesitation, no judgment, just pure, unconditional acceptance from a child. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Thank you." Emma grinned and tugged her toward the table. "Do you like pancakes? Daddy makes the best pancakes in the world." "Well, they're a little burnt sometimes. But I like them anyway." Michael laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "Thanks for the vote of confidence, kiddo." The 3 of them sat down together. Michael stirred batter in a bowl while Emma chattered endlessly about her drawings, her school and how her unicorn needed a castle. Lily listened quietly, her heart slowly thawing. The simple rhythm of their life, messy, imperfect, but full of love, wrapped around her like a blanket she hadn't known she needed. As days turned into weeks, Lily began to stay longer. She helped Emma with homework, braided her hair in the mornings, and even started cooking dinners when Michael came home exhausted. In return, Emma drew her into every game and every laugh, while Michael, without realizing it, gave her something she had craved all her life: belonging. It wasn't easy. There were nights Lily woke up crying, haunted by memories of loneliness. Times she doubted she deserved this second chance. But every time she faltered, Michael reminded her with steady patience, "You're here. That's enough. That's everything." One afternoon, weeks later, there was a knock on the door. When Michael opened it, a man in a tailored suit stood there, stern, polished, unmistakably part of the world Lily had left behind. Behind him a sleek black car waited at the curb. "Miss Ashford," the man said with stiff politeness. "Your family has been searching for you. They're relieved you're alive." Lily's chest tightened. The past had finally caught up with her. She glanced at Michael and Emma. Emma holding her hand, Michael standing solidly beside her. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to face it alone. "I'll talk to them," Lily said carefully. "But I'm not going back to being who I was before. I've found something here that money can't buy." The man looked bewildered, but Lily stood taller, her eyes steady. Later that evening, as the 3 of them sat on the couch with Emma nestled between them, Lily whispered, "You saved me, Michael, not just from that bridge but from myself." Michael shook his head, his voice low. "No, Lily. You saved yourself. I just happened to be there." Emma snuggled closer, yawning. "We're like a family now," she murmured sleepily. Lily's heart swelled. For the first time in years, she smiled. Genuine, radiant, unbroken. She had been pulled back from the edge not just of a bridge, but of despair. And now, she had found something worth living for. A new beginning.